Good morning. This is Norma Cowie for this week's Norma Talk. Now, I have to explain something. On the first Wednesday of every month, I usually take a reading and looking at North America, not the world, North America, for the next month, for this month, actually. Sorry, being a bit gobbled here, because I'm frustrated. I got up, and I always get up a little, well, not always, but I come over and I lay my reading out, I take a picture of it, and I send it to my mailbox so that I can protect it for you. But guess what? It's happened before, but often very, very the timing this morning. And I think once before it showed up the next day. And anyway, to make a long story short, as life often is, my picture has not shown up. So I'm going to do it the old-fashioned way by putting the pictures up, which is my beautiful symbology. So we're going to go one by one as I tell the story. It's much easier for me on the table because I can link them much easier. But this is the Wheel of Fortune, which is change. So what we're looking at is changes that are still going on. If you remember, and so last month, we ended up on the world, everything balanced, and I felt really, really good about where it is. And interestingly enough, as of yesterday, we for Canada, this is not so much the US, but I know US, some states are also redeeming certain things. Besides the province I live in, and one other province, everybody else is reducing certain mandates, which is very, very nice, which I'm very happy about in lots of ways, because I do believe we have some rights. So now what we're looking at coming in, and I'm just going to put this down a minute. I want to get a timeline on this because I usually do that as I work. That particular symbol represents change. Represents change happening, but it's always, as we look at it again, see this central part here is very important, because when there's change, and these are the 4 fixed signs of the zodiac, and they all have books because there's more knowledge yet to learn. There's lots of symbology in here, but basically what I want you to know is it represents change and how you respond to that change and how you deal with that change. All of those things are very, very, very important. And what I see from here, because this is done today, but this would have happened, the first was yesterday. I want to say actually the next symbol is going to take us to around the 6th, 7th of the month. This is the 6 of Pentacles, where we've got a merchant putting some coins in one man's hand and holding the scales over the other. So here's when I look at this and seeing the change and also the symbology that follows this, that this particular symbol is basically telling us that things are still in balance. Things are maybe out of balance or in a balance, and some people are waiting to see British Columbia, and some people are saying what's happening now, what's happening here. So many things are taking place, a little unsettled. So we've got 2 unsettled in this particular way I'm looking at it, up until around the 7th, maybe even the 8th of March. So then we come to the middle symbol of this top row, which is an attitude card, the Page of Pentacles, and that's waiting. This basically is always about waiting. And it's about the material world, because it's a pentacle, it's material. He's sitting on this beautiful big black horse overlooking these cloud fields. But they're waiting. And that, in a way, that reminds you of when in the springtime you wait to plant your crops. You wait. Sometimes you have to wait for things to come together. And it's often frustrating when you have to wait. The knight in this particular point isn't frustrated. He's just waiting patiently because that's the attitude that is needed at that time. So when we're looking at, say, the 7th, 10th, we want to go through to about 13th, 14th. We have this next symbol, which is the 6 of Cups, which is always, from my perspective, dealing with the past. Past relationships, past communications, past people from the past coming in. This is something that's coming up from the past. I place this somewhere between the 7th and the 10th to the 11th of the month. I think that there's going to be some form of communication that is going to happen, excuse me, But when we look at this symbol, which is a 9 of Swords, we're not going to be happy about it. But the majority, anyway, is not going to be happy about it. It's going to be a sadness, a sense of despair, a sense of, oh my goodness, what is happening? What's going on? And I feel that brings us right up to around the 12th, which is pretty well almost like not quite, but in the middle of the month. And I'm going to take a breath because as we move into that middle of the month, the 12th through to about the 15th, which would take us to the month, here we have now all these imaginational elements going on. So we've got, to me, it's before all the symbols, except for the first one, the Wheel of Fortune, everything is grounded. Even the lady sitting crying over what all the stuff that's going on, but this one isn't grounded. So there's a lot of conjecture, a lot of ideas and prospects as what about this and what about that, and very unsettled. And so as we come on towards the 20s, there's a lot of hesitancy about what is happening and what is going on. A lot of unease. That's what I see here. A lot of unease. And that's going to take us to about the 24th of the month. So to me, within a week, we'll say, there's going to be uncertainty and a kind of an awareness, maybe just sadness, uncertainty, a lot of uncertainty, like, and not really happy of what's going on. But then things change. 24th, heading towards the end of the month. This is the Hermit. Now, the Hermit is a person that goes inside, the meditation, the knowing, it knows. And it's like we often will say in a personal reading, you know, you have the answer, listen to your own answers, you know the answers. I think that what's going to come towards we get towards the end of the month is a sense of awareness. There's going to be some sanity, can I use that word? Sanity prevailing. And because the sanity prevails there, as we come towards the end of the month, once more, we have a symbol representing happiness, joy, everything in its right place. So what all this turmoil that seems to be brewing here, and again, this is reading just for North America, not the world at large, is like it settles down. And because it settled down, people get to celebrate. So to me, I know there's a lot has been said. The new moon coming in is very important. There's a whole lot of change and transformation. I think, though, that the journey may not be like an euphoria right away. I think there's a whole pile of things that are going to come out that people are not going to be super happy with. There's going to be the past coming into the present, where there's going to be having to reconsider, put things in perspective, not be real sure what's going to be happening. And then a sense of, oh, it's almost like a big breath, like, oh, here we are. Now we know in the direction of where we're heading and where we're going and what that's bringing forth. So this is going to be an interesting month. Now, March is a spring month for us up here because we come into the spring solstice. And is it a solstice or equinox? It's a solstice. I get the solstice and equinoxes sometimes a little confused. But it's when we shift and we go into spring. And that's in the middle of, like around the 20th, 21st of March, usually. And that makes a big difference in a lot of energy that's coming into the planet and what's happening with the planet. So although there's parts in here that I don't particularly like, always like when this particular reading ends up on that final card being a happy one. Like last month, it was the first time I'd really felt relief at the end. And again, too, even though there's struggles happening with us all through this month, it ends out with hope, with a realization, with a sense of being. So we've got change, and the key is not to blow or make the change blow up in our minds. You know how our minds can go and we can imagine all sorts of things, because really there's hope, joy, all those things coming to us. It's not a time, well, perhaps it is a time to sit and take stock of where you are and where you're wanting to go. so that you can enjoy what's happening. So it's like, oh, lay down the defenses, be more open to maybe reconciliation, awareness, and growth. A lot of people still feel a lot of pressure from what's been happening in our world. And it says the answer lies within, because it's how we handle things. It's one of my little topics. It's not the event that's important, it's how you handle the event. And it's like this month, and it is a changeover month, moving into spring eventually. It makes a difference, and it's like all these elements are happening. And I just look at this, and I just see the need to be open to possibilities, to be open and not get caught up and kind of dragged down, but rather lifted up. And it's a personal choice. The choice is how you want to respond and what you want to do. I'm really sorry that my picture is not up on the wall, because it makes that much easier when I can do that. And probably no sooner have I finished today, I'll go and look at my mail, and there it'll be. Because this has happened before. That's why I get up earlier, or I come and take the picture earlier and do all those things earlier than I have than I used to. But when I found this began sometimes happen, I had a feeling today was going to be one of those days, strange as it may be. So let us sort of go on from there about how we deal and handle and work with situations in our lives. I have found, and I mentioned this, I believe, in my Sunday Thought Talk, that people, myself included, we're finding ourselves being a bit critical, a little down, a little heavy on ourselves, on the world, and, just generally kind of disgruntled. And I actually had brought to my notice by a client of mine, who sort of phoned me up to say, look, this is what I'm experiencing. And then I realized that I also was I was also experiencing this myself. And then I realized the collective consciousness. Now, and I talked about this, but I'm going to talk about it again, because maybe some of you didn't hear that talk. All of us are like radio signals. We all have thoughts that go out into the wide band. Now, we all know how we've got phones, and we've got TVs, and we've got microwaves, and we've got radio and cell towers and all that stuff going on. And our mind, and many of us are affected by that, but our mind also has all these thoughts going out, telling the universe what it is you want, or you may not realize it, but what you don't want is also part of that. And they all collect. So we know that from people who've done research that I'm just trying to think how thoughts that we don't really want. And I don't want to give I don't like talking in positive or negative. I talk in want and don't want. So thoughts that we don't want tend to be heavier in nature. So you have all these thoughts of what people don't want coming together. Above that are people that are maybe in between, and then people who are more clear about what they do want, sort of like rising to the surface. But most of us, when we get like that, when we feel depressed, when we feel down, usually are connecting into that band of energy where all the thoughts are down. And then it triggers our maybe down unwanted thoughts. And what we need to do as people is be aware of our thinking. Now, I've always been strong on that, and I work with my clients on that all the time, sometimes to deaf ears. And that's pretty well a given, but that doesn't stop me from going on about how are you thinking and creating, and that there is a force that listens to that. So when we are feeling down, when we are feeling upset, when we are feeling unsure about what exactly is happening in the world, well, we need to really remember that we are still in our own creation, that it, as I said earlier, it is not the event. how you handle the event. It is not what is maybe happening around you. It's how are you maintaining that inner core and inner connection to that, what I call the love force. How is that working? How is that happening? How is that coming forward? So we want to rise in our thinking and in our hearts above the, you might want to call it the mainstream of thinking where everything is heavy. We need to, and that's why meditation comes in, because you can, there's so many different types of meditations today. Some are just of watching your thinking go by, which I always recommend you do. It's funny, I was just looking at an article and the person talked about the watcher. And I sort of did a double take and I thought, oh, I call that the observer. Same thing. I call it creating your own observer. So you observe your thinking. He was calling it the watcher. That's the same thing, different word. So it's like we need to be aware of what our thinking patterns is. First thing with my students, when we're looking at how we think, is like create an observer to watch how you think. We are probably not aware of just a little thimbleful of what our thinking is. And yet our thinking creates the vibration. It's the framework. It's what puts out. And when we mix that with all the frameworks that are going on out there, with all the pressures that are happening, and even though they're listening up, there's still pressure because we've gone through 2 years pretty well of having pressure. So therefore, as we open up, and I'm just sorry, I've got a drippy nose this morning. I have no idea where that's coming from. And so I'm raining drippy noses. Sorry, just a personal little joke. Now, let's go back to thinking. You are a product of your vibration by how you think, feel, and respond to your life. Your philosophy, which is your big, deeper belief system, is what aids you in dealing with those basic things. That's one reason I've always loved the tarot and the philosophy that it talks about. It taught me that there was a journey that we're on spiritually. It taught me how to think. It taught me how to feel. It taught me, well, not how to feel, but what we do with our feelings. It taught me what we do when we have issues and how we respond. And it taught me how we react in physical world, because we live in a physical world. As much as we would like to think we don't, we do. And circumstances that are around us. I know a lot of people that I talk to at times have been quite fearful of what's coming up in our world. And I always I've been through a lot of things in my life, and I just take them as they come and work through them, whatever that may be. It's no use worrying, because that's what it is, about what may happen or may not happen. Where are you and where do you want to be, and how are you responding? How you are responding is really, really important, because that sets up the next series of events. Are we all perfect? I certainly am not. I forget my own work sometimes. I think at least that was one. And then when I get off kilter, I kind of go, oh, where am I? That's not where I want to be. And I move myself back. But unfortunately, many people don't have a center in the sense of themselves. They don't have a realization of the direction of where they're heading. And I think why I'm saying this right now is because this month looks unsettled in some respects. And I'm going to go back to this symbol, which is the magician. The answer lies within you. You're the key to your life. No matter what other people say or do or create or anything else, how you respond, what depth that you are aware is so, so important. Now, I'm fortunate in my life. I have a number of friends that are really clear about who they are, where they're going. And it's interesting how very often when I've gone off on a tangent of some kind, they've just slowly brought me back. Now, I trust all of you have friends like that can just say a few words and bring you back to center. I like to think I do that for my clients and for some of my friends. But I also have friends that do that for me, because I'm like everybody else. I can get emotional about things. And when we get emotional, we're not always rational. fact, I watched a movie about that the other day. And so, which reminds me, I'm thinking of doing a couple of movie reviews. So probably little ones will come up very quickly. So it's like knowing that you're special and everyone is special, because we have an individual contact with that love energy of the universe. We have that, and we can utilize that. And so I want you to remember that you have that connection, and that beautiful symbol that came up at the end of the month, which I always like, where everyone is happy, joyous, and celebrating life. And that's another topic which I spoke about. Maybe I spoke about that on Sunday, with celebration. Too many. I have lots of talks I do these days. When I've gone from one to now 3 shows, and it's different. Everyone is different. So, and I forget what I say at one point or another, but happiness, celebration, enjoyment. And I was writing down, like, what do you enjoy? What you enjoy that gives you pleasure, so you can radiate that out into your vibrational rate. So that vibrational rate will reply, and you will have much, much, much more enjoyment, fun, delight, and life will begin to work super effectively for you. Well, I think that's what I have to say today. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you for listening into the Sunday Thought. And also on Monday, you can chat with me with your issues for mental mind treatments. And likes, I'm just trying to remember the process: likes, shares, subscribe, ring the bell. Thank you, thank you, thank you. See you next Wednesday. See you Monday night. See you Sunday. All that. Talk to you soon. Bye now.